Welcome to the zoning subcommittee of February 3rd, 2025. All rise and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Director.
Good evening, councilors. Tom Skorowski, 281 Broadway, Chief of Planning and Community Development. For once, I will be brief. I had sent to all of you the changes recommended at the last meeting. All of them followed basically verbatim what was in the slides that I presented at our last meeting with a few additions, and I'll just outline those additions briefly. On page 27, there was a reference to cell towers as a form of payment to help support affordability. And as Councilor McKenna had brought up at that meeting, that is prohibited in the city, nor is it something we want to look to encourage in the future. So I would like to, in addition to the track changes version that I presented on page 27, just eliminate reference to cell towers. And then wanted to discuss two other items that were mentioned at the last meeting. One of them was a discussion of, I guess, raising the height limit to 7 stories in Shirley Avenue and other neighborhoods. That was really just a discussion of a precedent example in another community. I believe the community was Somerville. It was really a broader point about creating a affordable housing overlay district where if you have a project that is 100% affordable, you basically get additional density bonuses and things like that. And so I just removed reference to that 7-story example in Somerville because that was never the point. The point was about creating overlays where it's a little bit easier administratively to approve affordability projects. But besides that, it was basically what we discussed at the last meeting, and I'll hold my comments and answer any questions you might have.
Councilor Guarino-Sawaya.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman. Tom, thank you. I'm one of the people that you spoke to today. What I would like to know is what we will be voting on tonight. I want it in your words. Are we voting on this plan, or are we voting to do what?
The vote would be to adopt the plan, at which point it would then go to the state for its approval. So if the plan was adopted, that would basically create safe harbor from any 40B development that comes in where a developer says, well, we want to circumvent or kind of leap over your local zoning ordinance because we have affordable housing within our project and you haven't met your 10% goal. That's the only thing that would be approved tonight. So as mentioned before, the Community Preservation Act, that additional surcharge on property taxes, that would not only take a vote of the council, it would then take a referendum of residents in the city to approve it. All the zoning changes would have to go in front of the planning board and the city council in the future, not anytime soon, and that's not our intent. So today would really just approve the use of this toolbox, and then as to how we use the tools and when we use them, that would be ultimately at the discretion of the council in the future.
And each section would be taken up separately in the future, right?
Correct. We wouldn't take this all as one package. I think they're all pretty complex issues. Maybe with the exception of zoning, when we do want to take it on, it might be good to take the whole package on, but neighborhood by neighborhood, not holistically in one big vote. It's too complicated, clearly, based off some of the discussions we've had.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Argenzio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Skorowski. I know you've come here several times, and thank you for your patience. So I just want to echo what Councilor Swire said. This plan is to relieve the specter of these 40B developers, and I know Councilor Zambudo had said that the chances of that were unlikely, and you kind of agreed with him, but the chances are not zero. So this plan gets voted in. Every section of this plan needs further discussion, votes, zoning subcommittee. Nothing that we do tonight puts this thing in action.
That's correct.
Okay, and one thing the parking lot, the municipal parking lot on Central Avenue, I know that was a suggestion as a good place for affordable housing. I know in the Broadway master plan, that plan identified that parking lot as integral to the parking along Broadway for the businesses. So those two plans seem to kind of contradict each other. Could you speak about that?
Yeah, so I think there's always competing interests in the work that we do, and part of the effort of planning is not just to create the visionary 10, 20-year plan, but do the work in between, balancing those various interests. So I think if we were, and that's a big if we were to look at the Central Avenue lot as a redevelopment opportunity for housing development, we'd have to consider not just what's called out in the plan about senior housing the senior center parking rather, and making sure we maintain that, but also parking for the entire business corridor. So as it stands today, that parking lot is severely underutilized as an economic development opportunity for the businesses along Broadway. If, even as we continue in our redevelopment efforts, it continues to be that way, maybe we can balance these competing interests and decide that it's worthwhile moving forward with a redevelopment that doesn't retain all of the parking. Maybe we decide we want all of it, but I think ultimately that would be an RFP that would go in front of the council where we could all talk about together how we want to balance those shared interests.
Thank you very much. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Yaramillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, what are the state's affordability goals for Revere?
The state's affordability goals are the same across the board in any community, which is 10% of the housing stock being set aside as deed restricted affordable.
This may be a question you don't have an answer to, but how many units have been built in general in the past since your tenure?
In terms of affordable or just across the board? I don't want to flub on an answer in front of you all.
It's okay, we can come back to that.
Yeah.
Maybe you send me any follow-up email there. How many units affordable have been built since your tenure?
Built and occupied, I don't think any at this time. We've had a few permitted, but haven't been built yet.
How many have been permitted?
About 50?
What's our progress to goal on the 10% there that you mentioned?
You say that again?
Progress to goal on
Well,
affordability.
we've got about 750 units that are needed to close the gap on affordability, and we have 50 in the permitting.
So 700 and how
Horizon.
many, sorry?
Right,
How many? Sorry. 700 and
about
what?
750.
750 and 50. And so that puts us at what percentage?
We're at about 7% right now.
Okay. And do Section 8 or housing count towards those units?
Any Section 8 vouchers, they travel with the person, they don't stay with the property, so they're not considered part of the 10% affordability. If, in order to qualify for that, it needs to be deed restricted for a period of 30 years or more.
And how about Revere Housing or some of our federal housing stock?
The Revere Housing Authority properties comprise the majority of our deed restricted affordable housing stock.
So that's the 7%?
Those are all deed restricted, 30 years, in some cases in perpetuity. So all of those qualify as affordable under the state's guidelines.
For 7%. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, thank you, and I appreciate you adjusting what you did after we talked last week. But the way I look at this, and I know it was mentioned by Councilor Agenzio and Councilor Sawaya, that, I'm not looking at this as a vote to do anything, and like you said. I'm looking at it as a management plan, that we agree to look at it and pick out things as people want to do things as we go along. And Now, will all the zoning changes have to come to us, or all the votes come to us, or any through ZBA?
They would all go in front of both the city council and the planning board, with the exception of a few scattered non-zoning items. So there's one that talks about utilizing tax title properties and developing those as affordable. We don't, I guess the vote that would be needed there would be to declare them as surplus at a later date. But in terms of using that as a tool, we could start that one almost immediately.
I don't know if the president would answer this too, but any of the veteran affordable housing units with VOSH vouchers, are they considered part of the affordable housing package?
If it's a voucher, it travels with the person, not the property. There are cases, though, like Revere Housing Authority, where you might have a deed-restricted property that the tenant is also using a voucher to help further support the rents, but you always have to think about the property itself, not the person.
Do you know if any of the units at 123 Shirley Ave are in that affordable package?
I believe they are.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, do you have something? No. Oh, thank you. Council McKenna.
Joanne McKenna, Counselor, Ward Counselor. I just need a question. So you talked about central parking and maybe down the line putting affordable housing in there. There are people that live there. There are streets, 2 streets, maybe 2 or 3 houses on each street. But those are people that live in that parking lot. Do you have any plans on what you would do for those people?
It's a good question. So, I think the goal would be utilizing setbacks and design principles to make sure that there are step downs from the abutters, if that was something we would undertake. Some of you may have seen, we had actually an award-winning student presentation about a year and a half ago that looked at that site and considered the possibilities there. I think often when we think of housing development, we always go right to that, like 5/2 large construction, which can be kind of, if you're right next to a single-family home, can feel pretty overpowering. And I think in that development, that student project we had there, they were actually looking at townhomes and 3 families and opportunities to kind of step down the closer you got to residents, that feel of the impact. And then as you're further away and closer to the Broadway corridor, having sort of a gradient in height, which is similar to, I think, a lot of the things, Councilor, that you've done in the Shirley Avenue neighborhood. I think that's the approach we'd take from a design standpoint.
So just one more question.
Go ahead,
I've had
Ms.
some residents call me. I mean, they're in fear of the city taking their houses by eminent domain. Can you say that the city is not going to do that?
We absolutely won't do that. Not even a consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to bring up a little bit of a story, and I wanted to thank Tom for putting all this work together and make sure the zoning board understands, and through you, Chair, to the body. This process has been undergone for almost a year and a half now, and it is just that, a study, much like the Broadway Master Plan. Broadway Master Plan had, there was some greenery in the middle of Broadway, right around Rite Aid and Walgreens. And then there was a lot of scuttlebutt online. Is the city going to build this massive housing at Rite Aid and Walgreens? The city, since I've been born, and since many of you have been alive, has not built one single house. At times, developers do build on properties, and Rite Aid is owned by a private developer, or private entity, and so is Walgreens. To the point where Rite Aid just came in front of us that they were going to be looking to sign another local pharmacy, which is great. It's great for the community. These are just, Tom's an urban planner, and he went to school for urban design. And this is what they do. They plan. And implementation is a whole other thing. So he's just presenting to you what is very much in my office from the Ambrosino administration, from the Colella administration, from the Arrigo administration, from the Rizzo administration. All of these plans, I would say 95% of all of these plans that are sitting in binders in my back office still have dust on them and have yet to be opened or have barely been touched. This is just about staying ahead to give a roadmap if there was a group like an HYM that came in and said, hey, we would be interested in doing this. Well, here's a little bit of a menu of potential options you could have, but you still have to go through all of these processes. Today, just before this meeting, we had 55 students from Harvard in this very chamber, and they're going down Squire Road as a school project, Harvard students, going down our Squire Road, Revere, the beautiful community of Revere. Welcome to all of them, and we greeted them to talk about what, if they were to do a study, what they would want to see in their pie-in-the-sky view of Squire Road. They're going to present this, they're going to go through their professors, each one of them is have different angles that they're interested in, and they're going to present it to the city. They may even present it to this very body. And that may go on a pile of paper in the back of an office. At some point in time, we may implement some of it. But all of it and everything that Tom has talked to you about, every single piece of it will have to continue to come back to this body and to be further adopted. And I just hope that you understand the work that he's put into this. This is not just a haphazard, here you go, and by no means, and I say this unfortunately because I think that we'd be in a better place if the city did do a little bit more when it came to affordable housing. The city isn't really much of a good builder. We just don't build very well. We build good schools, and we build a few good municipal buildings and DPW facilities, but we haven't really been much of a development company, and I don't really want to be either. So I just want to make sure you know that Tom has the best intentions, and ultimately you'll have the full authority to make sure that any of these future intentions would go through you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure, do I need permission to speak from the chair as the chairman? I don't think so, but couple of things. I don't have a big problem with this first piece of this, except that it opens the door for the second piece, which I have a lot of problem with. I think there's some major legal issues here. I'm not sure it's legal to, well, I don't want to get into the details, but there are many legal issues. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I probably played one for 25 years here on TV, but I do know zoning. I do know quite a bit about what we can and can't do with an existing special permit and so forth and so on. So there's some of those issues tied to this. So I'm going to ask my colleagues that we hold both of these in committee until we get the answers. I'm going to be looking for legal opinions. I'm going to be looking for financial opinions, because some of the implications on what has happened here, what could happen here, affects future financing. Now, there's talk about Suffolk Downs here. I'm not sure it really is part of this, but whether it is or not, that proposes, I was very against the high school going to Wonderland, and I lost that battle, but the bottom line is, what we did was take the future revenues from Suffolk Downs to pay for this high school. Now, if they're in jeopardy in any way, that's the high school in jeopardy. So there's a lot here, and I'm going to ask my colleagues on the committee to go with me to hold these both in committee until till we can get these couple of opinions, and I'll speak to them verbally before it goes to committee.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Yalmaro?
Yeah, motion to report favorably.
So what do we vote on the motion? Okay.
So we're voting on the first housing production plan. That's it, right?
As amended, yes.
Roll call.
Shall the zoning subcommittee offer a favorable recommendation on the City of Revere's housing production plan as amended? Councilor Agenzio?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Zambudo?
No.
No. The housing production plan as amended has received a favorable recommendation for the full City Council.
Thank you.
Next item is a request of the Chief of Planning and Community Development relative to the adoption of a housing development incentive zone and proposed activities at Suffolk Downs, the adoption of a housing development incentive zone and proposed activities at Green Street, Shirley Avenue, and the authorization of Mayor Patrick M. Keefe Jr. to execute and implement housing development tax exemption agreements for housing development incentive projects in each respective zone.
Mr. Director.
Good evening. Once again, I'm here to talk about a housing program, but distinct from the housing production plan that we just spoke to. This is a tool called the HDIP program, the Housing Development Incentive Program, that is a state tool that is looking to promote market rate housing in gateway cities throughout the Commonwealth. It's a tool only available to the 26 gateway cities in the state, and it's a two-pronged solution. The first is a local tax agreement, otherwise known as a tax increment exemption, which allows a city to exempt a portion of the taxes on the value created on a project for 5 to 20 years, from 10 to 100% of the value added on a project. So to put it simply, if you have a piece of land that's valued at $100 today and a developer builds it out and now it's valued at $1,000, we can choose to exempt that $900 for a period of time from 5 to 20 years, 10 to 100% of that value. So it's basically utilizing a local tax agreement as a way to incent more housing production. The second portion of this tool is a state tax credit, which is capped at $2.5 million or 25% of the qualified project expenditures on a housing development. That is a state tax credit that they can only get if a local tax agreement is executed first. So the plans that you have in front of you, they're actually two HDIP plans, and they have very different and unique goals within them. So the first is for the Suffolk Downs development, recognizing that it is the singular most transformative project in the city's past and future, from an economic development standpoint, from a housing standpoint, resiliency, quality of life standpoint, and of course, as Councilor Zambudo had mentioned, the connections to a lot of important municipal needs in the long run. This project helps to make all of that happen. 100% union built, includes tens of millions of dollars of on and off-site improvements, hundreds of millions really, both on-site and off-site. Things like the Harris Street pedestrian connection, things like Bell Circle, Brown Circle, all of those off-site improvements are going to be done as part of this project, in addition to Beachmont Square and everything else that's happening in that project. So this is a significant project that we would like to use this tool as a way to spark the development of that next phase of Suffolk Downs Portico. And so that's one portion of our HDIP plan. That's one distinct HDIP plan. The second one is looking at Shirley Avenue and Green Street, which are those two districts that were approved about a year ago to make us compliant with MBTA communities. It was a 40R, a smart growth district. The idea being that we would use 40R as a tool to provide density bonus and other improvements to streamline affordable housing permitting in the city. And as of today, we haven't seen any utilization of either of those two districts, because often they're working through the ZBA or through the city council special permit process to approve projects where they don't have that same affordability requirement. So with this plan, we would like to use it as a tool to incent more affordable development and more use of that 40R smart growth plan. I would ask the chair if it would be appropriate, considering, you know, of these two districts, I think we can all agree the Suffolk Downs of it all is perhaps the most important of it. And we have Tom O'Brien and Doug Mance here from HYM that would be willing to speak about why this tool is important to them and their development, and just give the council an update on where we stand. So,
Again, I don't have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with passing this because of the legal issues that are out there. And you can give me all the assurances you want, they're not enough. Because I frankly don't believe that you can open up a special permit to insert this. Now, again, when I'm shown that, maybe, I don't believe I will be, but I certainly won't have a problem with HYM giving a presentation. But I'm not sure how that affects this. We already know that HYM is and will be probably the best development the city ever gets. But bottom line is, it doesn't eliminate my concerns at this point. So my intention is not to approve this section tonight, and for all the reasons I stated, and I think it would be irresponsible to pass this without getting the answers that we need. But I certainly am looking forward to a presentation from HYM.
So the one thing I will.
Any councilors want to speak on this? Councilor Argenzio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Skorowski, exactly what would we be voting on tonight? Authorizing the mayor to enter into negotiations?
Thank you for the question. That's what I was just about to say. So similar to the HPP, where the plan was approved, but then the nuts and bolts would come back to the council at a future date, the same case here. So this would approve us to be able to submit to the Office of Housing and Livable Communities our HDIP plan. You know, depending on how quickly the state operates, it could be 30 to 60 days where they then approve the plan, and then they approve, after, hopefully you will, the authorization to start negotiating tax agreements with, this is the only developer within any of our HDIP districts that actually is looking to take advantage of this tool today. So if it was approved at the local level and then the state level, we would then enter into negotiations, and we would bring back to the city council a plan of exactly what we would be looking at. And I would say, as we're submitting the HDIP plan, I'd be happy to submit clarifying questions to HLC about the legality of approving an HDIP deal after a special permit's already been issued. I can tell you from precedent, I'm not an attorney either. I sometimes play one on Revere TV as well, but in my previous time in Fitchburg, I had approved an HDIP district and had several projects that had been approved by the planning board, which is the special permit granting authority, and then at a later date came in front of the city council with a tax deal. And I think that's fairly common in terms of precedent for this tool, because if you think about it the other way, if a tax deal was approved before the plan was actually approved by a planning board or a city council, you would wonder what exactly you're approving, because you don't know the general outline of what the development would look like. They might bring with you a proposal for an 80-unit development, but who knows if that would actually get approved. So you really can only understand what the impacts would be and what the possibilities would be of that agreement if you know what's actually approved in the first place.
So we would be establishing the district tonight?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we ought to approve the district tonight, and then come back later and talk about different locales that we want to attack or approve later. But I think establishing the district now would be a major point, and then come back later and do the diff, and work from there. So unless anybody has anything to say, I would like.
Councilor Guarino Suaya.
Shut me off.
Okay. I
Excuse
just
me,
want to ask,
Councilor, you said, in case anybody has anything else to say, I called on another councilor. I apologize
okay?
if you think I cut you off. I certainly didn't cut you off on purpose.
are you all set, Ira?
Sorry.
Okay.
Point
I
of
just want to
clarification. Is there a
reiterate
motion on
that
the-
question that was asked by Councilor Argenzio. We are only voting on, so you can have a negotiation with the mayor's office. HYM can have a negotiation with the mayor's office and yourself, right? This is what we're voting on.
That, and to send the plan to the state for the state's approval, at which point we could then start negotiating
Okay,
those
so
deals.
if the state approves it now,
Yes.
it's going to come back to us? Or is it a done deal after the state approves it?
Oh, it'll absolutely come back to us. So that when the state approves it, it then authorizes the mayor's office and my office to enter into discussions with any developers that want to utilize this tool. And of course, right now, HYM.
So if the state approves it, it comes back to us, and say we have to vote on it again, we can shoot it down at that point?
You could.
Okay, thank you.
with all due respect to the director, I want to put on the record here tonight that I do not want to vote. As chairman of this zoning committee, I urge my colleagues not to vote in favor of this until we get the legal issues solved. Now, it's easy to say the director did some stuff in Fitchburg and all the other good stuff, and everybody has an opinion. I want a legal opinion. I want a fiscal opinion from our professionals. And that's what I'm asking for here tonight. I just want to go on the record that I think it's reckless to pass this without knowing those issues. Councilor Sawaya. Guarino Sawaya.
Well, if we approve this tonight, can't you get your legal opinion from the city solicitor and everything during the negotiation?
The bottom line is you're approving and endorsing something that may not be legal. That's all I'm telling you. I'm the chairman of this committee. That's my opinion. I'm only one person. It's only one man's opinion, but it's a serious opinion, and all my opinions in 25 years have been well-reasoned. And I offer that out, and the committee is at its leisure to do what it wants. However, I caution that I believe it's a mistake. I'm not always right, but I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken. I would ask that this stay in committee. So I'll ask for a roll call on that until we receive the legal, financial opinions, et cetera. Two. Oh, no, I'm okay.
Yep, now it's good.
It did it on its own.
Mr. Chairman, as I was talking before, I said, the first part, establishing the diff, is not the part that you are talking about, whether it's legal or not. The part that you are talking about is whether or not we give it to someone that's already established an approval. And I don't see anything wrong with establishing the district, the HDIP district now, and then later on, we can talk about what's legal as far as who they're going to give it to and how they're going to give it. So I would make a motion at this time that we approve the adoption of the HDIP zone. Is that what it is, zone? The HDIP zone, and for at least establish a zone as a big package. And then later we can come back and talk about who we're going to give it to. But at least we get the ball rolling with the state and to get things approved. So I make that motion that we approve the HDIP district.
So the council makes a substitute motion to my motion to send this to committee, so the substitute motion goes first.
On Councilor Novoselsky's substitute motion to report out the Housing Development Incentive Zone and proposed activities at Suffolk Downs, Housing Development Incentive Zone and proposed activities at Green Street, Shirley Avenue, and the authorization of the mayor to execute and implement housing development tax exemption agreements for housing development incentive projects in each respective zone with a favorable recommendation to the full city council. Councilor Argenzio?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guarino Sawaya?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Jaramillo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Zambudo?
No.
No, the HDIP zones and the authorization will be forwarded to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
I'm going to allow a presentation of HYM. You've got 20 minutes if you want it.
Well, I'll try hard not to use that, but
Okay.
I'll try and move through this as quickly as we can. We're just waiting for this to get hooked up to the screens here, I think, for 1 second. While we're doing that, just my name is Tom O'Brien with the HYM Investment Group. This is, I don't know how many times we've appeared before this body, but we really appreciate you folks making time for us. And then what we're trying to do is hopefully give you a quick update on Suffolk Downs, see if that lines up. 1 minute. Did it disconnect down below? Here we go. I think we're going to connect it here. Hey, Counselor. Mr. Chairman, I can just speak if you want, and then we can later send this presentation to everybody. Is that okay? I can. Oh, it will. Oh, okay, great.
Go right ahead, Mr. O'Brien.
That's okay. And we're happy to, we can send this to everybody and people can look at it. So I think our purpose tonight was to just kind of give everybody an update. You know, for a lot of us, we spend so much time on this transaction, and there's a lot that we take for granted in terms of what we know and where we are. But I would suggest that you folks have so much on your plate, and you have a lot going on, you're very busy. So we're very happy to take this time to kind of give you an update on everything that we've been doing and all that's been happening. So the first, just a reminder, we acquired the site in 2017. And so remember, at that time, the site was basically an abandoned horse racing track. The horse racing only happened a few times a year. And in the portion of the track that was in Revere were the old horse barns. So those horse barns at that point in time were important to the overall operation of the track, but were not a key part of the overall valuation of the track. And so at that time, the track paid approximately $350,000 or so in taxes, property taxes, to the city of Revere. And as we went through the whole process of approving and going through that work, it's important to point out that we've spent probably at this point close to $500 million of capital so far on the site to add value and to do the work necessary to advance the development. Among those pieces that we've built into, certainly we built the project known as Amaya. That actually is an additional $250 million, so that's not in the $500 million, but all the other pieces around that, the parks, the roadways, the the work to create the outdoor concert venue, the work that we do to build out all the infrastructure, national grid, all those sorts of things, that's caused an investment of about, as I said, about $500 million into the site. And all of those things have brought a tremendous amount of activity into the site as we move forward. We demolished all of the existing barns. We built all those on-site roadways that you know well, built Beachmont Plaza, the open space that you can see there, did all the infield work for the stage at Suffolk Downs, the installation of the new Washburn Avenue climate barrier berm, which is a key part of protecting the entire site. We did the Winthrop Avenue Revere Beach Parkway intersection, did all those different pieces. And then we've got another about $30 to $32 million of work that's going to happen this year of more infrastructure work as we go forward. Amaya, we're very proud of that. We opened that in 2024. It's been very successful. We've leased almost half of the 475 units at this point. We're really pleased about how that's going so far. But I think the key thing for folks to remember is Amaya is just one building. And so the premise of the entire site is that we would build a community and that we would build these buildings in multiple points at a time and get to the point where we could have more people living there, take this abandoned horse racing track and make it a place that's active. So the key next step for us is to get this next building underway. The work so far that we did for Amaya produced about 750,000 union construction hours, about 375 specific jobs working during construction at key moments during that period of time. So about 375 people at peak moments working on that project on that site. It's like a $250 million investment, as I suggested before. This year, just that building alone, will pay almost $2 million of property taxes into the city coffers. Here's what's next. We're working to get a hotel in the ground as well. And so we have about 150-key nationally branded hotel that's due to begin this year, probably late summer, early fall of this year, September of 2025. Could start in July of start in September 2025. And then in July, our hope is to start Portico, which is the next 475 unit residential building on its way. And then, as I said earlier, about $30 million of infrastructure that we'll take on. If I could, a little bit more on the hotel. The hotel is about 70,000 gross square feet, 150 rooms, as I said, projected to have a rooftop bar, which we're really excited about. We're doing this in partnership with a group that is an established hotel developer and owner and operator, and very excited that will start this year in '25 and deliver in the spring of 2027. Just on the hotel, in terms of tax revenue, to give you a sense of that, the combination of real property and personal property taxes, the Massachusetts room occupancy tax, the local option room occupancy tax that would come to the city, meals tax, specifically for Revere, the total piece of taxes that would be paid by this hotel in general across all of those pieces, including the part to the Commonwealth, is just over $1.5 million. And just under $1 million of that comes to Revere in terms of the room tax to Revere, the property tax, and the meals tax for Revere. In general, for us, for Suffolk Downs, for right now, as I told you, we started off paying less than $400,000 of taxes in 2017. As of right now, as we get into 2025, before we begin Portico, we paid over $10 million of property taxes so far, which is great. With Portico underway, we pushed those total amount of taxes in the hotel to close to about $4 million per year, which is great. In addition to that, remember that we also pay fees, permitting fees, the water and sewer fees, all those different pieces. And so fees paid to date, we paid about $4 million of total fees to date, and then an additional projected fees from Portico of almost another $4 million. It's a big building. So in total, almost $8 million of total fees to be paid to the city. All of these, what they really mean, I think this is the key number that we would have projected on these slides had they been up on the screen, is the total real estate taxes have increased about 595%. So that's 595% between FY17 and FY25. The one thing I would say is, we did a calculation ourselves in the last couple of weeks to say, if we build out this site in the next 10 to 15 years, which we'd like to do, then, we project that the taxes could increase to over $70 million per year, which is a big part toward making our contribution to the high school. The reason we're here today is the environment that we're in right now, where interest rates haven't gone up so quickly, so precipitously, that's really affected this next building. And so what we need is some assistance. The governor and lieutenant governor have helped us with some assistance to help get that building going in the economic development bill and the housing bond bill. But we need this HDIP in order to make that piece go. So we appreciate everybody's vote tonight, giving us the chance to kind of go to the next step on that, and then we'll come back before the city council with the mayor's okay, with the actual plan for how we could implement an HDIP program to get the portico building underway. I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have for me.
Any councilors? No questions. Councilor Argento.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. And in future construction, you're still committed to 100% union labor.
We are,
I think
yeah.
that's very important to this
Yeah,
council.
I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but yes, absolutely. I'm joined by members of the building trades here tonight. We are. It's the math on these projects is a challenge for us, and so that's in large part why the HDIP is needed for us to make the math work. I know it needs very little reminding for you folks, but the Amaya building that we just completed, we believe is the only 100% union-built residential project in Revere. In fact, you can look at it, the other side of the Blue Line tracks from our project is a project that is not built, with union labor. But our commitment is to that, and our commitment is strong on Portico to get this underway. We want to do this in partnership with the building trades.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Councilor Avenmello.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us. So you're going to go enter into these negotiations after the council meeting, possibly with the mayor. Can you just walk me through a little bit of what, so 10 years ago, you came before this council and you negotiated, about 10 years ago.
Not quite 10,
About half of
2017.
us were here,
Yeah.
some of us weren't. I know that the chairman was still here at the time. How many affordable units did we do or workforce housing units does the whole project have?
So at the time, the city council in Revere, so we actually came before this body in 2018 after a well-structured, I think, community process. We had a group of people who met from the city, citizens and elected officials and a variety of different folks who met on a regular basis. And after going through that planning process, I think we came before a final vote of the city council in the last quarter of 2018, if that sounds right, Mr. Chairman. And at that time, the city council elected to approve a plan that did not have affordable units in it. So that's the plan that's approved. We're not asking to reopen that plan.
Correct.
On the Boston side, 2/3 of the site, this is your question, Councilor, 2/3 of the site is in Boston. On the Boston side, the then policy in Boston was that 13% of the units built in Boston would be affordable to people who are, I believe, 85% of the area median income. So that would be teachers, firefighters, folks like that who struggle to find housing that's affordable. And then we also pledged, working with the then city councilor in Boston, that for additional amounts of public funds that we could raise on the Boston side, that those could also go toward a contribution of a additional affordable housing fund in the community of East Boston.
Thank you, Tom. I think that actually, you answered all the questions I had with that response. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
In fact, I think we insisted there would be no affordable at the time on the Revere side.
That's correct.
And
That's correct.
I would do that today.
Yes.
So, thank
Understood.
you.
Yes.
Any other councils have anything for Mr. O'Brien? Okay, that
Thanks for your
concludes the zoning subcommittee meeting for February 3rd. Thank you all.